Marco, you and Owen for the invitation here and for this wonderful events that they are organizing for the guitar at distance, but it's nice to share culture and to talk about music also in this crazy moment for humanity actually. Okay, so I will start this conversation from not a presentation of Tansman because we can have on Wikipedia and in many other, also in books, we have many informations, but from a special perspective, which is the friendship, a special story about the friendship which was between the Polish composer Alexandre Tansman and the Spanish guitarist Andres Segovia. It was, of course, an artistic friendship, but also human, a very deep friendship. Almost every guitar piece by Tansman was dedicated to Segovia, and in many of the manuscripts we can find a special dedication pour Andrés Segovia l'unique. In English, it means to Andrés Segovian, the one and only. Really, it was pure love in a way, and so it was something more than a artistic relationship. It was really friendship. And also we have to think to another little story which is very significant for me. We can think that Segovia always, when he asked a piece to a composer, he used to send a check, a bank check, symbolic, not so big and not so much value of money, but still he always sent some checks, and many of them were found in Tasman's archive, and he kept all these checks like a gift, like an ideal gift, but he never went to the bank to take the money. So it was really, it was like every piece he wrote for Segovia, it was not for money, but only for this kind of special friendship. Then, of course, like many composers from this period, the first half of the 20th century, Tansman became interested in guitar after meeting Segovia, after meeting the Spanish guitarist, especially in one special occasion, in a evening, in a dinner which was organized by a manager, Henri Prunière. He was also the director of a very famous magazine at the time. It was La Revue Musicale in Paris, and he organized a meeting between Tansman, Segovia, and also important composers such as Maurice Ravel, Albert Roussel, and many others. And at the end of the dinner, he asked Segovia to play a piece. And Segovia played the Chacona by Johann Sebastian Bach. And Tansman, after many years, recalled the situation with these words. I was really surprised because I expected that the Spanish guitarist would play some flamenco pieces, some Spanish music, while I heard a very touching interpretation of Bach Chacona, and he was really touched and surprised by this. And also Segovia didn't know the ideal and the symbolic value of Bach piece, of this piece, for Tansman, because Tansman decided to give his life to the music and to dedicate all his life to the composition after listening to a concert of Eugène Ysaÿe, and he was performing the Chacona in that concert. So he was touched and extremely surprised by this, by the strength of this piece. Then he decided to start the music and to dedicate his life to music. So it was a symbolic meeting between Segovia and Tansman, and also a symbolic piece in that situation, the Chacona. And so immediately started to write for guitar. In 1925 he wrote the first piece, a mazurka, which Segovia played a lot, and then many other pieces, and all of them were sign of this friendship in a way. Then we have to say that after many pieces published by Tansman and also by Segovia, officially published, some years ago, a number of pieces were found in Tansman's personal archive and in the archives of Fundación Andrés Segovia in Spain, in Linares, and many pieces were found. So the Alexandre Tansman's works are now considered really one of the most important guitar opus of the 20th century. Let's talk now about my experience, my personal experience with this repertoire, and also during the recording. And especially I would like to focus on the idea of the manuscripts in this kind of music, because I had the privilege of working on the original manuscript thanks to Marianne Tansman and Frédéric Zigante. They gave me the possibility of checking this and to resolve many doubts and omissions which can be found in the printed editions. Some of those manuscripts are already published. Some are going to be published. For example, Frédéric Zigante is preparing a new edition of Homage to Chopin and Suite in Modo Polonico, so we will have also a new version inspired to manuscript of these very famous pieces. In a way, I think that a manuscript doesn't represent the truth, because the final printed edition had always the permission and the authorization of the composer. So also the changes made by Segovia to find a compromise between the original intention of the composer and the guitar's possibilities were accepted by the authors of the music. But manuscripts are still a very important source and document for the interpretation. And for example, we can find sometimes very detailed signs of articulation, of dynamics, and in general of expression which we don't find in the printed editions, maybe for mistakes sometimes. And maybe today also we could have a different perspective on which are the possibilities and also the limits of the guitar. So some passages discarded by Segovia in that time or by other players who made the editions could be considered today, because we changed a bit the perspective of playing and of technique, of legato, of many things. But the most important use we can do about manuscripts is, of course, to check the printed mistakes, because especially in that period, in the edition of the time, were quite frequent. We can find not only, of course, in Tansman works, but also in Castelnuovo Tedesco pieces. For example, in Sonata Homage to Book, there is a very famous mistake, not a note actually, but a sign of expression. In a part of the fourth movement is written quasi fantasia, which is like fantasy, like fantasia, which actually means nothing musically, or maybe yes, we're using a lot of imagination. But in the original manuscript there was written quasi fanfara, like a fanfare, so completely another idea, a musical idea. So sometimes the manuscript is very important to check these mistakes, or sometimes also mistakes of notes is what we will check now. And so of course we can notice the same problem in other composers, and so manuscripts for me are a very nice document to also check these kind of mistakes. Let's start with the Cavatina, which is the most popular and famous piece among Tansman's works for guitar. Let's speak very fastly about the story of Cavatina, the musical story at least. Otherwise we will stay hours and hours speaking about Tansman. The original manuscript was in D minor, so from this version for piano, in a way, in double key, to the final version in E minor, there has been a lot of exchanges of ideas, corrections between Segovia and Tansman. Some passages were a bit uncomfortable in the original manuscript for the guitar. So they were together looking for this compromise between the intention, the musical intention, and then the guitar's possibilities and the guitar natural legato and phrasing. So this was the work that Segovia was always doing with all the composers of the period, and the edition of the 50s of this piece, the Cavatina, represents a very good compromise between these two aspects. And all the choices of Segovia were, of course, approved by Tansman. A few years ago, Friedrich Zigante published a new critical edition of the work, showing all the other solutions which were discarded at the time. Some of them are really interesting, actually, and show more the original intention of the composer. This manuscript, of course, is published, but these things almost they don't change the overall structure of the piece. We can find usually and mostly a different harmonization of some chords, some scales a bit more rich in harmonies, but nothing really huge. But actually there is a huge and famous mistake in the second movement, the Saraband, in the old Segovia edition, but it was not fault of Segovia, of course. We will check this. In fact, I will show now, sharing the screen. I hope I'm able to do it. Yes. So this is the Saraband, the second movement. This is the beginning of the second part. Now I will just make an example, musical example. And here we have these two bars, the same, so a repetition of the same bar, and then an extra bar. But if we listen to the Segovia recording and also the manuscript, it's another thing. Now I will stop share. Okay. And it sounds more like this. We have one more bar, actually. We have this bar, and then the rest. And then it changes. And why it is so important? Of course, it's one bar more. And this bar makes really sense because I will turn back, if I can, in the other mode. No, I cannot, I think, okay, but it's not so important. It's very important because it shows the mirror phrasing of that part of the Saraband. In fact, this bar is repeated at the end of this strange mirror. So we have here the repetition. So it's a kind of mirror phrasing which sometimes Tansman uses also in the Danza Pomposa, in the last movement of this Cavatina. So this about the Cavatina. Let's talk now about the suite in modo polonico. Just a minute, I will try to come back to the other visual. Sorry, one moment. I cannot see everybody. Okay, now I see everybody again. Okay, so in the suite in modo polonico, also we have something like this, and in general the suite in modo polonico is Tansman's more strange and controversial piece for guitar because as it is published today, it is the result of a mix, of a collage made by Segovia with the composer permission always. In fact, there was an initial nucleus which was made by a number of dances which were transcriptions and also elaborations of ancient lute dances from the Polish lutists. To this initial nucleus, then Tansman added some dances and melodies from the Polish folklore, and then Segovia eliminated 3 movements that he considered not possible to play on the guitar, and he added 3 pieces written in another period, and also the first mazurka Tansman wrote in 1925. So a big mix, but also here we find some differences checking the manuscript, and also I have to say checking the Segovia recording, because Segovia played always the right note, at least in this Tansman repertoire, because he knew the manuscript and so he didn't read the mistakes of printing. So for example, in the Entrée, the first movement of the Suite in Modo Polonico, which starts like this, and then we have a section in D major, we have in the final part of this dance, we have a change between the D major section and the D minor section. And in the printed edition, we find a D chord without the third of the chord, so missing the F. So we have this. And then we have again the minor part. So it sounds like this in the printed edition. But actually in the manuscript and in the Segovia recording, this is not the right chord, but we have a sudden minor chord, which sounds very dramatic, so the passage is much more dramatic. That's it. So it is very interesting, and Segovia played the piece like this. So sometimes these little changes, little mistakes actually of printing, it is not a choice of Segovia, but only a mistake, and I think manuscripts are very important to check this. Another example, now let's talk about the Pasacai, which is a piece written in the same period, more or less, of the Cavatina, a bit after, in 1953. And it is one of the most important discoveries of the Andres Segovia archive in the Fundación Andres Segovia, made by Gilardino. So there are many posthumous works published a few years ago by Angelo Gilardino. And it is a special piece because it's in E minor, but it needs the D open string, 6th string. So it needs a scordatura, but not for playing a piece in D, but for a piece in E. So this was very strange to Segovia ears. It sounded a bit unorthodox for him, so he decided not to play for this reason. So it was like, why I have to play a piece in E with the 6th in D? So maybe this was the way he was thinking, but actually it's a pity that he never played, because it's a very nice piece and actually very well written for guitar, and it doesn't need a lot of adjustments. Maybe it doesn't need at all adjustments, but I would like to show you a different option than the one chosen by Gilardino, which is also very good, for the final chords of the Pasacai. I will show, sharing the screen. Yes, so Pasacai, sorry, I will find, okay, so this is the Gilardino option for the final. We have this strange chord. Okay, it's not strange, of course, but Tansman is always very classical and very very clear in his harmonies. So we have this final bar. We have a Napolitan 6th, then this chord, which has a E, which is a bit strange because it doesn't resolve on a D sharp, but it sounds a lot because we have 2 open strings. But then if we go to check the manuscript, we have a very interesting final, we have, this is the last bar, Napolitan sixth, and then, so we have this dissonance, Mi Fa, and then the Mi is resolving on the D, and we don't have the open string E, but the open string, yes, E, but we have the B. So we have an inner voice, very important, and the chord is more classical. It makes more sense because we have the resolution of appoggiatura and we have the dissonance of Mi Fa. So this is, I think, a bit better. Also, if the sound, maybe the general effect of the other one is a bit more powerful, but this also can be. So it could be another option given from the manuscript. These are only small examples. We can have many of these. These are the most important, I think. Then let's go to Homage to Chopin. I would like to show you two more pieces, the Homage to Chopin and Variation sur un thème de Scriabin, which are also very famous pieces. I just go back to, to myself. So, the Homage to Chopin is made of 3 pieces plus 1, because it's 3 pieces, Prelude, Nocturne and Valse Romantique, and a ballad which is very, very nice, not so famous, but it's inspired on themes by taken from the ballad number 1 of Frédéric Chopin in G minor, because the main theme of the ballad by Tansman is taken really from taken from the Chopin ballad. So the original tonality of the 3 pieces at least was D, and the final printed edition was E. So like the Cavatina, it is a procedure that is very frequent also in Homage to Bach. So Tansman always writes in D, and then the publisher or Segovia make it in E. So also here we have a very strange passage, and very famous actually, with a non-conventional and clear modulation in the prelude, which is due not to a choice by Segovia, made by Segovia, but to a printing mistake, a stupid mistake. So we have this in the beginning of the second phrase of the prelude. This chord always sounds a bit, really? It's like this, because it's a bit not conventional, because these chords are not in the tonality of E minor, which was the beginning of the piece, and neither in A minor, which is the other part, the following part. So many players played this, many famous ones played with these notes, but Segovia played with other notes, and he was right actually, because if we go to check the manuscript, this is the notes, the bass notes of the passage. So I start a bit from before. So this is the chord actually, and also the movement of the bass melody is not, but it's mi fa mi fa mi fa mi fa la. So it's just a chord which is a dominant with the 9, which is in the tonality of A minor. So it's connected with the following passage, and it's very, very much more musical and much more natural. so more Tansman style in a way also. So it was not a choice of the publisher, which was not Segovia actually, but it was only a mistake. And we have also other examples, not mistakes this one, but choices. For example, in the manuscript we have much more notes, and in this case we can choose if adding these notes or not. Usually we have a kind of different harmonization of the chords, a bit heavier and a bit also more dramatic. Like in the Cavatina we have mostly harmonization differences. For example, in the valse, just in the beginning of the valse, which is very sunny in the printed edition, so it's just D major. In the manuscript it's written like this with an extra bass. So we have it's much more tense, we have more tension. And the tension resolves here. So it can be interesting to study this manuscript as documents, but sometimes taking at least the mistakes of the old editions, and then to see if the musical speech and the musical intention of the composer could be better, maybe with the little adding the extra notes, if the musical result and the technical result is enough legato and enough natural on the guitar. But at least the mistakes. And now the last piece I would like to talk about is the Variation sur un thème de Scriabin, a very nice piece, a very famous one. And this piece was, of course, a request of Andrea Segovia, who a few years earlier transcribed and recorded also the prelude number 4, opus 16 by Alexandre Scriabin, for piano, of course, and the tonality, the original tonality was E flat minor, and the new tonality chosen by Segovia was B minor, so more natural on the guitar. A very nice prelude. But there is an evident mistake, not a choice again of Segovia, because if you listen to the recording of Segovia, or recording only the prelude, so not the variations, but there is the right note. The mistake is here. Of course, we have this beautiful beginning. The mistake is very close. This B, si, re was not right. Of course, in the original piano version there was this note. And then we can think that maybe it's a choice also of Tansman, because if we check the first variation, also in the bass, when we have the elaboration of this melody on the bass in the first variation, he uses the B also in the first variation. But then if we check the manuscript, we see that it's not like this. That is, in the manuscript we have the right note, so we don't have to play the B. It's not respecting the Scriabin prelude, neither the manuscript of Tansman. And then, of course, we can find many other elements, not mistakes but choices, not made by Segovia, made by Alvaro Company, who made this edition, the edition we all have of the Variation. For example, there is sometimes something that we can change because of the musical intention, as I said before, and to make more clear and natural a passage. For example, in the third variation, which starts like this, and then that's it. After a while we have this passage, and then going on. We have a lot of basses here. We have a pedal in the basses, and then sorry, we don't have a lot of sound here because we don't have that sound of the pedal in the bass. And if we check the manuscript, we have other harmonization. The pedal is not in the low string, but it's in the high string, so it sounds like this. So it's, and then the connection with this chord is just this. So it's mi, fa, it's very natural. And then the rest. And so maybe a crescendo could be more natural. Of course, the fingering is a bit more difficult. We don't have the bass pedal, which is very comfortable for us, but it could be an idea to keep this crescendo towards the high note and this progression towards this chord a bit more natural and with more direction in a way. So yeah, this was the ideas I want to share with you, that permission by the composer. It's a connection between the player in that time, especially by Segovia, and the composer. But we can find many interesting signs, many details, and sometimes, especially, we can find the mistakes of the printed edition, and in this case we have to intervene, we have to correct them and to be aware of them. Then, if we decide to have our own, not our own version, but to add little things that doesn't change so much the piece, but makes the music of some passages a bit more clear and natural and musical, I think we also can use them. I did this in the recording, and yes, it was my experience. So I think now we can, yes, go back to the other section of this speech. I will, yes, I see Marco now.
Thanks, Andrea.
Thank you.
Very good talk. Maybe
going to watch a YouTube video now.
What you want to do, Andrea? We send the video, or you want to start the question now?
As you like. Maybe you can. We can start the questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Andrea, thanks so much for the talk. Absolutely fantastic. The amount of detail that you go into towards your performances is fantastic. It really shows in your playing. I just wanted to ask a little bit of some questions in around Segovia and Tansman. So did Tansman have much? You say that he first obviously experienced Segovia playing the Chopin in D, and that blew his mind. What experience of guitar and what Segovia would have been doing would Tansman have had before meeting Segovia, or in his compositional career, or would he have been limited in that regard, or?
You mean what Tansman?
What sort of experience with writing for guitar would have Tansman had before meeting Segovia? Or did?
Yeah, so I don't know actually. I think yeah, so I think the influence of Segovia in Tansman music is huge.
Really, yeah.
Also, if we compare the pieces not written for guitar by Tansman, written for piano, for orchestra, they are much more modern than the guitar ones. And in the guitar pieces by Tansman, we really find Segovia inside. We find the melodies, the harmonies, post-romantic harmonies that Segovia loved. We don't find the Spanish character actually, because Tansman was maybe the only composer of the time which didn't have the inspiration and the influence of the Spanish sound. There is only one piece in which he tries, but not in a very happy way. The piece is Segovia from another suite, not Suite in Modo Polonico. It's called Segovia, and it is a portrait of Segovia. So it tries to be a bit Spanish, but not really in a convincing way. But yes, I think that their relationship was very nice. Also, in the way he conceived the pieces. Usually he tried to write short pieces, or pieces maybe with many movements, but quite short, to give to Segovia the possibility to show all the contrast between short pieces. And also at the time it was not very typical to play a very big long piece, while it was more suitable for the guitar to play suite made by short pieces. Yeah, and then yes, I think also the relationship. Also, Segovia, it was always a bit like this with composers. Once, about Castelnuovo Tedesco, there is also a nice story that Castelnuovo Tedesco was going to be deported because he was a Jew, and he was going to start his trip to America, to Los Angeles, and in the 40s, during the deportation. So it was Christmas, and Segovia decided to go in his house in Florence to give him kind words, to be together before this tragic moment. So it was nice to have this story of a collaboration, which was more than an artistic collaboration between composer and guitarist of the time.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Andrea. Just for everyone to know that you can turn on your videos now, your video link. And I think Carlos has a question, is he?
Yes, and first there is Luis.
Oh, hi, Andrea. Hi, Marco. Hi, Eoin. Hi, everybody. Great to see this happening, you know, in these times. It's a relief for us who are here locked at home. Andrea, it was very interesting, your talk. I really liked how you cleared up this issue about we need to listen to Segovia's recordings with respect. So many times we see that the mistakes are not Segovia's, and the mistakes are in the printed editions, right? Yeah. And that was very important to stress that. I have two questions, quick questions, if I may. One is that how do we know about that Segovia, that Tansman approved Segovia's changes and everything? Do we have letters, or do we have some sort of records about that? And the other question is, let me just find it here. The manuscripts that you had access to, what kind of manuscripts are those? Are they like drafts, or are they like ready to go manuscript? Which stage are they?
Okay, thank you very much. So thank you for listening. And about the improvement, yes, we have many signs. Usually, if we take the Cavatina as an example, there was not a manuscript and then the final version. There was always a procedure, an exchange of ideas between the two, and we have, in a way, in the specific case of the Cavatina, we have many manuscripts. So no one is the right one, in a way. And we have, for example, for some passages, we have like 5 versions with 6 notes, with without chords, with a scale. So it's difficult also to find a definitive manuscript. So in this case, but in general, this was the kind of agreement they had. They were looking together to find the best option, and no one of them considered the first version as definitive, so the first manuscript as definitive. And about manuscripts, I didn't have actually the possibility of checking every manuscript. So I mean all the versions of the manuscript. I could check sometimes the first and the final version. For example, in the Homage to Chopin, I could see only the first version, which is a bit complicated also to understand. But with also digital ways, it's nice to see, and we can find interesting information. Of that piece, I think we don't have the version ready for the printing. But in general, I think it's very useful to check also the first versions to see some ideas which are the same also in the other versions. So yes, I think in general we have to think to the Cavatina as an example because in every piece it was a very nice collaboration between the two.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, the next one is Carlos. Carlos, okay.
Ciao, caro Andrea.
Ciao. I don't see you, but I listen to you.
So my question was about which of the works you recorded in your double CD for Naxos are the premieres or first recordings, with the first question. And the other one would be why we don't know some of those works before, and were there lost in the Segovia archive, or of how we can access also these manuscripts if we want to
Yes. To see, to check, yes.
them or compare them or something like that.
Yes, thank you for the question. The only first performances were the three pieces before the Suite in Modo Polonico, which are in the first tracks of the first CD. So these are three short dances which are really new performances and new recordings because they were manuscript not published. They should have been part of the Suite in Modo Polonico, but then Segovia thought, no, it's not so important. Let's put other pieces. They are not masterpieces. They are nice. Especially the Gaillard for me is very interesting, and the Dumka, a very slow dance, very poetic. But these are the only really new. The others were published. We have. We don't need the manuscript to know them because most of them are published by Gilardino in these posthumous works. They are not very famous because, I don't know, Tansman was never a fashion. Some players, some famous guitarists always tell that, no, okay, Tansman wrote the Cavatina and that's it.
For example, this Homage a Bach is wonderful. It's really great.
Maybe it's not famous because it's difficult because it's
Yeah.
very hard to play.
I was really surprised because I never heard it before.
Yeah, for example, it is an interesting piece because also it was written in D minor in the manuscript, and actually some of these manuscripts are in the end of the Gilardino edition. So after all the pieces, we have now the Passacaille, the Homage to Bach, and others, the suite, the suite brève, quatre pièces brèves, and we have all the manuscript of these pieces, and we find also the two very unknown Catalan songs taken from Llobet and rearranged, maybe a bit more polyphonic and complex, but still very interesting in a more Tansman piano style. So yes, only I have to say that these three manuscripts of the not published piece are going to be published by Zigante, and for now we don't have the possibility to show them. But they are very simple, and everybody could for now listen and found the note on the guitar, so it's very easy to. And really, it will be published very soon by Zigante.
Okay, thank you. The next one is Amrit.
Yes. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, very well.
Congratulations. It's really a huge work, and it's just amazing. And thank you for doing that, and thank you also to Marco and Eoin for organizing this. It's really great. But it's time to talk about guitar with master. So I have actually two questions. One, it's about the Cavatina and its bond with Danza Pomposa, because I've heard many times also great guitarists are talking about strange relations between these two pieces. Of course, maybe you can talk a little bit about this. And the second question, It's actually not about solo works, actually about the suite in modo polonico. I had the opportunity to listen to a concert where I heard the suite with the harp, and I was wondering if you could talk us.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Thank you for the nice questions. So the first question was about the Cavatina and Danza Pomposa. The relationship is very easy because Tansman wrote for first the Cavatina with the final movement, which was the Barcarolle. And with that piece, he won also a composition competition in Accademia Chigiana in Italy, in Siena. So it was a piece like this. Then Segovia, for his concerts, he needed to end these pieces. He needed a stronger piece, maybe a bit more loud with a chord like this, and so he asked to Tansman to write another movement a bit more effective and lively than the
It's also related to the wedding of Segovia, or no? Because
this I really don't know. I really don't know. I don't know, but I think that always Tansman liked the last movements and in general the final of the piece, not a big final, not a strong final. He always wanted to have far away notes, and if you think the final of the is one of the best thing of the Cavatina. So okay, and the other question was about the
suite in modo polonico.
Suite in modo polonico. I forgot. Sorry.
Harp.
The?
With harp.
With harp. Yes. Yes. Of course, the first edition was for solo guitar. Then Segovia had to make some tour, some concerts with a harpa player, and asked, "Can you arrange me a piece for harpa and a version of this suite for harpa and guitar?" And he did, and he kept the guitar version like it is, so it doesn't change for the guitarist, so very easy for Segovia. But then the harp version was a bit criticized from the harp player, and they didn't play, actually. I don't know if it was too poor or too difficult, not very easy for the harp in general. So we don't have many execution of this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see if there are more questions.
Hi.
Okay, Julia. Yes.
Hi, thank you for this organization, and thank you, Andrea. And my question is, why did you choose Tansman, and what did bring you to choose and follow in a particular way all his work with Segovia and so all the pieces?
Thank you very much. Yes, I always liked Tansman because of this aspect that he doesn't write in a Spanish way, because I really like classical music without the prejudice of the Spanish folklore on the guitar. So this is one of the main reasons of my interest for Tansman, because he's very classic in his writing. He's not always guitaristic, because he always think to the piano way of writing, and sometimes to the orchestral, but less orchestral. I think Mario Castelnuovo Tedesco is more orchestral, and because we find these very nice melodies and these differences of articulation between the voices, so he always thinks to the orchestra. While Tansman is more keyboard. In fact, sometimes now we have really little examples that show this. For example, now any chord that Tansman writes is not like we would do on the guitar with all the notes and with the thumb. It's always a bit distant, so not in a very close position, the notes. It's really like a piano chord with the same distance, a bit wide distance between the notes, and we can find this in all these pieces, especially in the manuscript, because sometimes the one who makes the editions always adds some notes to do the chord, the classical guitar chord. But in general, this is the aspect that makes Tansman nice to me, and also I think for the ears of the listeners who are not guitarists, because sometimes the other instrument players, the composers, they always listen to this guitar music with Spanish, with these things, and they expect, like Tansman was expecting some flamenco from Segovia. They still have a bit this prejudice. So it's always nice to underline that the guitar is also something more than this. So this was for me the value of his works.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Gloria, you're the next.
Hi, Andrea. Hi, everyone. Thank you for your speech. And well, I was thinking that I noticed that in Tansman's pieces not written for guitar, like Isaïe le Prophète or Les 10 Commandments, Tansman is more risky by a tonal and harmonic point of view. And I was thinking, well, do you think that this was to be more compliant with Segovia's taste in music, or I don't know, maybe he just thought in a more traditional way for guitar?
For guitar. It's a nice question, because it's really true. I make an example on this. Once a few months ago, I've been invited to a non-guitar festival, so not organized by a guitarist. And usually in that situations, you think, okay, I don't play for guitarists, so it's even better. I can play a full Tansman concert, is even better maybe for not guitarists. And the organizer told me, really, a full Tansman concert, but it's so modern for us. No, maybe the audience will be, very worried from all this modern music, because he didn't know the works for guitar, and he knew only the piano works, which are actually more modern than the guitar one. They are more inspired to Stravinsky and to the East modern music of the time. So they were more actual, more contemporary for the time. I don't know if it's about Segovia to be towards the taste of Segovia, or maybe for the identity of the guitar, which is a very lyrical instrument. So maybe it could be a mix of both things. But it's clear that Segovia in his letters always asked nice melodies and chords, and always criticized a bit the abstract works he did also for the guitar. The concertino for orchestra was very criticized by Segovia. And it is a bit more modern than other pieces written for guitar. So I think it is a mix of both things. But in general, it is more neoclassic and more romantic also on the guitar than other.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see if we have more questions. I really like what you did on the in the passage that Gilardino arranged. It's very effective to have
because
voice.
So sometimes it's not really like Casanova Tedesco. The very strange thing of Tansman is that he doesn't write articulation at all. In any piece he writes staccato, legato, nothing, while Casanova Tedesco is the opposite. He writes melody, staccato, and inner note, legato, so it's completely the opposite. While Tansman, it was like, okay, Segovia, you do what you want. So it's very strange for a not guitar composer. But yeah, in that passage, I think, in some passages the manuscript can give a stronger musical sense and more coherence also to the passage. but okay, there are always, for example, I can give you another example. There is a very nice piece, the Prelude et Interlude, which are two preludes actually, and Tansman had to write a collection of preludes for Segovia, but he wrote only two. And the first is very, very beautiful. It's very Chopin style, and he wrote in A minor, which, if you read the score, is not very nice, because the original tonality is also published. The manuscript by Gilardino is not very easy to bring out the melody and to make a balance with the arpeggio, so the accompaniment, so it's not so easy. And Gilardino decided to make it very high, from A minor to D minor. But then I think that the basses are not very... The general sound is a bit too dry, so I tried to keep it more close to the original, not keeping the original tonality, which I think is not very natural, but only one tone upper. So I play in B minor, and it sounds, just a bit at the beginning because I don't remember the piece, it sounds really like Barrios and even a bit like Chopin. Sounds very natural with some notes harmonics, but yeah, it can be another way, of course. And it's not a famous piece. We have only the Gilardino edition. Nobody's playing. Maybe for a student, I really understand why Gilardino choose the D minor, because it's easier for a student to keep the legato and to have less position to link. But then the sound in general is a bit less interesting. But for one who has to read it for the first time, I think it's a nice solution in D minor.
Okay, we have a question from Stefano. Spallotto. So I have to unmute you. Okay, you can talk now.
Hi, Andrea. Hi, everyone. The question is about your guitar in the recording, because you are used a fantastic and amazing guitar, Frederick, and tell us about the story of this experience.
Yes.
Where the guitar from? Where is your experience?
Yeah. Sometimes if you listen the guitars live, you have a different opinion than in the recording, because the recording sometimes takes the best thing of a guitar, the best sides of the guitar, if the guy who is recording is good, I mean the microphones and everything. So I think this was a very special guitar, because it was one of the first Friedrich, or maybe the first concert model made by Friedrich. All the guitar he made before were experiments and were student models, while this was a 1963 Friedrich, so one of the real early Friedrichs, in spruce, with a terrible crack here in the middle of the soundboard. So it was very strange for me to record in Canada with this crack. Also, it was repaired, of course, but you know, in the winter, the heating system is very high, and the cracks always move a little bit. So I was really worried, and I was looking every 5 minutes. And the guy who helped me, who made the recording, the maestro Norbert Kraft, was telling me a story of Antigoni Goni recording there with a very old guitar. I don't remember which guitar, maybe Romanillos, a very old guitar. And suddenly during the recording he heard a very strange noise, and then, no, the guitar is broken. So it was not a very refreshing story for me in that moment. But in general, the guitar was very nice, very dry sound, because it was very pure, not many resonances, but very pure colors for me. So it was very nice to have it.
It's good for polyphony.
Yeah,
especially.
Yes, but sometimes you never know, because many players for this kind of repertoire, they think more to the, I don't know, double tops, and to have a completely different kind of sound, more piano style in a way, more keyboard. So it was not obvious in a way, but I think that I wanted also to recall the sound of Segovia, not the sound of Segovia actually, but something more connected also to the French sound. Friedrich was French, Tansman half French actually, and to have a very interesting sound. Otherwise, it can't. Tansman pieces can sound a bit poor, because you have to make the modulations and the harmony changings very clear, also with using the sound and the colors.
Yeah. It can be also the sound that Tansman had in his ear at the time.
We don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have another question from Savigni.
Hi, Andrea. Can you hear me? Ciao. I want to ask you if you can talk about the two popular songs at the end of your CDs, and if they are published.
Yes, I will show because actually sometimes we are lazy because I will share the screen. You see, this is the Gilardino edition. It's a bit slow on my computer, but yes, there is all the story, etc., etc. Then we have many pieces, all the posthumous pieces like the Homage to Bach. Then we have the Cavatina, the Passakai, and we have all the manuscript at the end. All the manuscript of those pieces. So, for example, here is the Elegia from the Sonatina. Actually, some more manuscripts in this piece. Here we have the 4 mazurkas, quattro tempi di mazurka, and in the end we have the two popular songs. Your question was right, actually, because there is not a real published edition. We have only this manuscript published in the posthumous works by Gilardino, and then we have the first popular song, and the famous one. This is this one, the other in D major. So I worked on this, actually, only in this, but they are very clear. You see, there are always triola, and it's always a bit more complicated than Yobe. Harmonization also, you can see full chords, and not very. It's difficult to make it sing, actually, but then it's a nice version. It could be very nice for an encore of a concert, because everybody expect a famous piece for the encore, while this is a famous piece but hidden, so it could be interesting.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, maybe we can have one last question. Let's see if there is someone. Okay, there is Carlos. Do you want to make your question?
Here he comes.
Hi, Carlos.
Hi.
Yes.
Just and the video is still. Oh, yes. Okay. I just wanted to ask you, Andrea, if you're maybe planning to publish your own edition of Tansman works, or maybe some reviews or notes, or maybe your solutions, because the prof in guitar world is we have some amazing players. They do this research on this work once, and the end is like the recording, but we don't have any product after it, just for research or for consulting after that, because maybe you made a lot of own solutions, and we just are amazed as that is working so well and is sounding so fine as would be really original for guitar. The whole thing and maybe a lot of solutions are from you. So it would be maybe nice to have some of your thoughts or maybe some of your reflections or your solutions of some passages that for sure are very interesting for the other people. Not for copying your interpretation,
no, but of course,
just as a source of comparison with the manuscript, as a way to know your logic, to find solutions that actually is very important thing to learn, I think.
Yes, thank you for the question. I didn't think about it because until now, because okay, everybody is stopping now, but I had things to do, and these things requires a lot of time. So it's difficult to find the time also for making a publication and of course everything is interesting because when you make a choice you discard some other choices, and of course I don't play every note from the manuscript, so it is also it would be correct for you to know which notes are right, which notes are from manuscripts and which notes are from my arrangement of the passage, my personal arrangement, because sometimes I take the idea from the manuscript, but then that idea, that the chord, for example, is not really possible, so I change a little bit the highness of the notes, the octave. So sometimes there are a lot of choices like this, especially, for example, in the Homage to Chopin, there are many of these. I think that for now you will have the Frederick Zigante edition, which is the manuscript. He will publish the manuscript version with no edition. I mean, with not changing anything and giving you the possibility to find your idea. So this could be a very nice start, especially for the pieces we don't know the manuscripts because they are not published. So at least this is important. Then yes, maybe I will use this quarantine times to write something and to think about it. Also, it could be interesting for me also to understand myself better.
Yes, because the problem is always that people making editions are not always having the time for playing it, and the players doesn't have the time to publish. It's like a double problem, and we're not going forward in the research or in the publication. That's my concern.
Yeah, no, I understand you. Yes, of course, and yes, but I think we have to check for example, this Gilardino version is very interesting because, okay, you have the Gilardino decision, you have the fingerings, and then in the end you have also the manuscript, and you can have your idea. So if you don't agree with these choices, which in this case are okay, sometimes are important choices like the tonality of the prelude and interlude, but in general you have the possibility to check and to create your own idea. Yes, I think this is my perspective for now. Then let's see.
Thank you. Okay, thank you so much, Andrea.
Thank you for
thanks for everyone to be here with us. And I think, I don't know, we already planned other 3 talks. The next week we will have Eoin Flood talking about Brouwer. Then the 20th of April, Enrica Savigni, that will talk about Fernando. And the 5th of May, Eoin Watt. But we are already working to try to have other lectures in May. So we will send you all the calendar soon. And okay, so that we have also all McDonald, that is the director of the TU Dublin here connected. So I want to say hello and thanks her to help us.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so I hope to see you next week.
See you. Bye.
Ciao, ciao. Bye bye.
Ciao. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
Some Spanish music again.
Now only flamenco.